I move to open the Marshfield Conservation Commission meeting for January 8th, 2025. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
We don't have any minutes, and I'll go right into our public hearings. If anyone is here for, okay, we don't have that, the continuations.
It was up there, too.
It was up on the Town of Marshfield DPW ditch clearing is continued somewhat indefinitely, and 110 Main Street has been voted to be continued to January 22nd, so neither of those will be heard tonight. So our first item is RDA 2443, which actually, this came up at town meeting. And did we ever get a filing on this, Mike?
We received the RDA.
I don't know if you know this, Sam, but
yeah, at the last town meeting, it was voted that the town would accept this as part of, I believe it was like the well water protection area.
it is in the well water protection area.
Yes. So I'm not sure where that stands, if the town is going through with buying it. I know that the septic system was proposed in case they wanted to sell the lot individually. So I'm not sure if there's a representative online for this one today.
I think you need to check in with, was it Greg Morris on this one?
Yes.
You need to contact Greg and see what the timeline's going to be.
Okay.
Because the town will be buying this property, but it is a question of getting the appropriated $765,000, and it will be coming from the water retained earnings in the town. So this is really off our plate. But I'm not sure what the process going forward will be, so we need it to come off our agenda because we're no longer,
Okay. I'll ask
Involved.
that they send a withdrawal email.
yes,
Perfect.
okay. I'm sorry, Sam, I should have notified.
That's fine, makes it easier for me.
Yep. Okay, RDA 2445 is 5 Country Way. This is already open, and Commissioner O'Donnell is the hearing officer.
Okay, thank you. Michael, the taxes confirmed, I see.
Yep. All administrative requirements have been met.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak to the, oh, okay. Why don't you come up, introduce yourself?
I'm Bailey Tobin, 5 Country Way.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the project, what happened here?
So I had a driveway replaced. It was 1,400 square feet, roughly. The road was getting replaced, Country Way, not Breakwater there, the main road. I called the DPW. I asked them if, what was going on with the road. They said it was getting replaced, so I figured it'd be good timing to put a driveway in. I was unfamiliar with the regulations and stuff until Mike came knocking on the door, so it's my fault for that. I was unfamiliar with the rules.
You're a new homeowner, right?
Yes.
Recently bought that?
Yep, April.
Pardon me?
In April.
April, yep.
Yep.
Okay. So essentially, this was a one-for-one replacement. It was a gravel?
It was it was like mixed. It was gravel
Gravel.
with some cobblestone in there.
Okay. And there was also some fencing work done as well. That's what we,
Yeah, there was. So, sorry for the poor drawing, but you can see the fence right there. And then there was also a fence on the other side of the house. So where the driveway is, there was a fence from that side of the house to the neighbor's fence. The fence posts are still in the ground, but the gates have broken. So I was looking to replace where that gate was and that existing fence just to match the fence that goes along Ocean Street there.
Yeah,
It's a
and
white
it's
plastic fence.
pardon me?
It's a white plastic
White
fence.
plastic, it's elevated above the ground, it's not flush to the ground.
It is. It's elevated.
Yep. And it's, is there a picture of it, Mike? And it's got railings.
I have a
It's not
picture of the driveway here.
Okay.
As you
I don't know
can
if
see,
you
if
can-
we zoom in, I believe that's one of the posts
The
right
posts,
there.
That's one of the
Correct, yeah.
posts, yeah,
Yeah.
his two gates, so. All right, and the building commissioner is okay. The new fencing conforms to all setback.
Yeah, so I spoke with him. I originally wanted to wrap the fence kind of around the property and then go up Country Way there. When I spoke with him, there's a bylaw where on a corner lot, 25 feet, both sides of the property, you have to go back. So I'd kind of have to angle the fence in a manner which it would be tough. I'd take up half the property and make it difficult to see around the corner. So I'm just going to I'm hoping to replace what's already there.
Okay. All right. Any commissioners have any questions on the project? Nothing? Is there anybody from the public that have any questions? Any concerns? Okay. Good.
Could I just say, the replacement was impervious for what had been
Previous
pervious.
Yeah.
So maybe we could get some planting?
Well, I was going to ask Mike about special conditions. I know that was raised because, you went from a pervious driveway to an impervious driveway.
Right.
It is in a zone coastal flow. So sometimes what we do is we ask for plantings for mitigation purposes. Mike, you want to weigh in on that, or?
Yeah, typically for something like this where, it's a pervious structure being replaced with an impervious driveway, sometimes the commission may require at their discretion native plantings to compensate for that. Potentially native plantings that could do well in this area would be beach grass. There's a variety of options, including blueberry bushes, sweet pepper bushes. I can provide you an entire list.
Okay.
And kind of, you could even, or we could choose and prescribe plantings, or you could pick out some native plantings to put in there. Yeah, typically those plantings have to meet a 2-year success rate. And there is some good opportunity for plantings here under this tree.
Okay.
Or along the fence line on either side. Those would be some good areas for plantings. And then other than that, I would just suggest the standard conditions for a request for determination of applicability, such as ensuring that best management practices are followed before commencing the work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see the administrator or the agent for guidance on work beyond this approved work activity.
Okay.
Okay. So you're amenable, you work with Mike, and he doesn't need to come up with a planting plan, right? He can just work with you and,
I don't think it needs to be super formal.
okay.
Okay.
All right, so why don't you'll check in with Mike and
Okay.
maybe, close the loop on what type of plantings and where, and I think we'll be good. Is that okay with you, Mike?
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Okay, so if there are any other questions, concerns? Okay.
If I have, so I'll do some planting around that tree after talking with you, Mike. Do I need to fill out one of these forms again for that, or is that
No.
formality?
Nope.
Captured under that.
No,
Okay.
you're done with the
Sort of
permit
a
thing.
mitigation because of.
Okay, understood.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to issue a determination of applicability with a positive 5 because the area is subject to review by the Conservation Commission, and a negative 2 because the work did not remove fill or significantly alter the area. So I make that motion. Do I have a second? Sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, Green Harbor Marina, this is a new hearing. I will read the legal notice. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 8th, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by BGHM Inc., care of Brewer Green Harbor Marina. And the hearing officer is Commissioner Lake.
Mike, have all the administrative requirements been satisfied?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay. Is there anyone here to present? You can introduce yourself, please.
So, good evening. I'm Joe Pellegri with the Rise Group. So we're under contract to install solar on the roof at the Marina maintenance building. And we need to build an access platform as shown on the screen currently to meet electrical code, emergency shutdown, and access to the breaker that's in the panel on the side of the building. Therefore, we need to install 4 footings.
Thank you. Mike, did you have any comments?
Yeah, this project is located in land subject to coast storm flowage, AE 13. There would be 2 posts supporting the structure, as well as a support at the bottom of the staircase. As stated, it's necessary to access the electrical utilities here mounted on the side of the building. This is located on the new, or somewhat new, constructed warehouse on the property, or I'm not sure what to call that structure other than a warehouse, but it's where they do all the work on the boats in the marina. And yeah, the platform would be 9 feet wide, 4.5 feet in width, and then 3.5 feet in height. And it would be supported by 4 12-inch diameter and 4-foot deep concrete footings, so sonotubes.
I didn't have any issues with the project. Do any commissioners have any questions or concerns? Is there anyone from the public who has any questions or concerns?
This is Andrew Stewart, the building commissioner. I'd like to speak on this real quick.
Go ahead.
The sketch that was just shown was the first time I've seen that. I just want to make sure that the platform and stair framing is placed in such a way that it does not obstruct the flood openings. The diagram, the little sketch that was shown, shows that the framing for the stairs kind of obstructing the 4, the left kind of corner, top corner of the flood vents. So whatever framing happens, it should be, either to the side of it, or maybe the deck gets extended so those flood vents are completely under the deck, instead of being obstructed by the flood vents. That's all. Thank you.
Is that something that's,
Yeah, could do it either way. What we tried to do was leave a space between the edge of the stairs and the flood vent. I wasn't sure if that was suffice or not. Had a brief conversation with the inspector, Dave Cowell, but we can easily extend the deck as well and keep it above the flood vent.
okay.
It will require an additional footing.
Could you just flip the stairs to the other side of the deck?
Yeah, the owners have asked us to leave that corner kind of open, so as they, come around that corner, they don't hit the stairs. Originally, that was kind of the idea. But preferably, this design is better for the, the owners. Mr. Stewart, would that be acceptable to have the space between the stringers and the flood vent?
No, it would not. It has to be completely unobstructed, so there can't be anything in front of it. So whether it's moving, if they extend the platform another foot, literally just making it another foot, and I don't see how that would add another footing to this whole thing. You can frame it so that you can span that, believe me, you can span that. You wouldn't have to change the amount of footings. Make the platform another foot and extend it over that way, or put the stairs on the other side so it doesn't run into whatever the turning radius they're trying to protect. It's just an access platform only for, the electrical code. So it's not like it has to even have stairs. It could have a ladder, so there's a lot of considerations to have there, but the flood vents absolutely cannot be obstructed. This is brand new construction.
That's perfect. We'll work with you to get that correct for the building.
Could the stairs come out perpendicular?
They also wanted to
wanted-
retain the space. Yeah, there's a
Gotcha.
fence on the property line, if you would. Trying to maintain some space there. The ladder is very helpful and probably the, way
Yeah,
to
that
go
might
with
make
this.
the most
We'll
sense.
work with
to-
the building department to get the building,
Yeah, you're talking 39 inches, basically. to the
Am I
top,
correct?
right? Yeah.
yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, so what does that mean for this?
Well, I think we're going to need a new drawing of whatever you ultimately decide on, whether you're
Sure.
going to extend the deck or use a ladder or whatever. How quickly do you think you can make whatever alterations you need to make?
This drawing, it could be done tomorrow. This was done by me in PDF, so, yeah, I have complete control of that. I would like to probably have just a better conversation with,
With Andrew?
yes,
So what we often do is, we can approve this tonight pending a replacement plan by Friday.
sure. Can we extend till Monday, just to give me?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Yeah, give you a little wiggle room
That's
to
all, yeah.
speak to Andrew. Yeah,
Craig, can I speak real quick?
sure.
I'm happy, for me, if they make it a foot larger or they, or whatever, ultimately the impact to the resource area is the same. It's still just the footings, right, that are actually impacting the resource area. So I don't think that the amount of size of the footings are gonna change, so I don't think the impact really changes. So I'm fine with, the Conservation Commission approving this, as long as they're not gonna add any more footings than what they're proposing, and, that's, obviously if they add a ladder, that's gonna be even less than what they're gonna need now, so, I think that, that would be totally okay to approve tonight.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly, I see no reason we can't approve it tonight. I just want to make sure that, for the record, we have what will ultimately actually be built.
Sure.
So there's no,
We'll do that in conjunction with the building permit then. We're gonna obtain a building permit. Okay?
sounds good.
Mike, do you have any other special conditions in addition to what we just discussed?
Yeah, I would suggest the standard DOA determination of applicability, special conditions, including ensure best management practices are followed before commencing the work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see myself or the conservation agent for further guidance beyond the approved work. And also, I would suggest issuing this as a +5 and -2.
So I'll move to close the hearing and issue a determination of applicability with a +5 and a -2. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much.
thank you.
Appreciate your time.
The next item on the agenda is Town of Marshfield, 2160 Ocean Street. I'm going to postpone that until later in the meeting. We have somebody who needs to attend that who is not available yet. So we will go on to Oak Development, 1187 Ferry Street, where we are still waiting on the new plan that we requested at the last meeting. So I'm going to move to continue SE 42 3041A to January 22nd. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. SE 42 3117, 11 Ice House Lane.
I think Rick is gonna be on.
Okay, and the hearing officer here, this is a continued hearing, is once again Commissioner Lake.
Maybe.
We received the updated plan.
Okay.
Did you have any comments?
No. No.
So it looks like the revised plan shows the 3 shows 3 proposed conservation markers and a variety of 28 plantings. My observation from reviewing the plan, the placement of the plan looks like it's still pretty much preserving the unpermitted lawn that you had before. That's my impression of the revised plan that was provided. And I know we had a conversation about that last time. With respect to the variety of plantings, I think some of the other commissioners may have some more knowledge with respect to the specific species. Did any of the other commissioners have any comments on the revised plan?
I share your concern that we still have, you know, a big open space. And I think we were very specific at the last meeting that you can't mow. Once you have those conservation markers placed, there's no lawn maintenance taking place
Right.
behind them. So personally, I would like to see some of those plants pushed out a little more into the empty space.
I share that sentiment as well.
Was there a reason why that area was left without any plantings?
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Rick Savant with Fenbeck and Taylor, I'm on here. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I was under the full impression after our meeting last time that we had agreed with Brooks' U-shaped layout of these plants. And that's essentially what I had done. I know we had a lot of back and forth on the open section in the middle, which I thought we had agreed would be fine as long as, you know, we respected the markers and didn't, you know, the grass was gonna grow and all that. I thought we had worked that out and that's why I had put the planting plan as Brooke had it, the U-shaped, and left it as such with the 3 markers at the 50. I did move the plants up to the 50 along the side, and there's about a, you know, 25-foot wide area roughly in the center there. There are some existing trees in the center also, but I thought that's what we had agreed on at the meeting. That's why I showed it that way.
Do you have any comments, Mike?
Yeah, I was under the impression too that this area would be filled out more with plants. There's I could also pull the meeting minutes from the last meeting. I did not do that yet for this meeting, but I was under the same impression as the 2 commissioners who already spoke this evening.
I was under the opposite impression. I thought we had agreed this was the way it was going to go. I just spent $800 to update this plan to what I thought you were looking for. That's all I have to say about it. I understand some people have different preferences in terms of the way it's planted, but I'm putting stuff in there that never existed. It was nothing but thorns. I'm putting some beautiful bushes in there. Now, you're arguing over the way they're laid out. I don't know what else to say or do. I mean, I've spent a lot of money on the plan previously, and I just had to spend another $800 to come back today with what I thought was a plan that you guys had agreed to on the last meeting. I don't understand the hang-up with the middle of the lawn. I really don't. You're going by your preference, but I'm putting in a lot of plants that were not there. I'm spending a lot of money to do that. I don't think I should be dictated to in terms of exactly where they go within that area. I just don't agree with that at all.
May I make a point, Liz? So, you clearly, you know, are desirous of maintaining some opening in the yard there. You do understand that you can't maintain it in any
Right.
way.
I understand that.
Now, it seems to me it would make a whole lot more sense if you have what is now a bit of lawn there. It's going to become weedy, it's going to become a mess. From my point of view, it would make more sense to spread those plants
I understand what you're saying, but my preference is the way that we had agreed to in the last meeting, and that's on this plan. That's my preference. I understand it's a personal preference of yours, but I'm
It's
the
not a-
one living there, I'm the one paying for it. It doesn't make a difference environmentally, I'm assuming.
Well, as long as you understand, you can't go beyond those markers
I
on
understand
the
that.
20,
Well, I can't maintain it, I can't mow it.
right,
And whatnot.
right.
I'm assuming I can walk in there and you know, whatever, if a branch falls, pick up the branch, put it in a pile, that type of thing.
Yes,
Okay.
but you can't maintain any lawn there.
Gotcha.
And this will be under a monitoring,
Yeah, 2 years of monitoring.
2 years of monitoring. So, just so you know, there's gonna be eyes on it.
It's okay, I'm okay with that.
So, Mike, have the number of plantings increased with this revised plan from the previous plan? 'Cause
I'll check my notes here.
It doubled
Yeah, it
what
was-
I
yeah, I believe it
originally
did
had.
Yes.
double, okay.
Double the plan.
All right, so
Yes.
we doubled the planting.
Yes, there's a lot
And
more plants.
So that's a step in the right direction. I do recall the conversation, and with the moving of the conservation markers to the 50-foot, zone. And we did talk about the fact that nothing can happen on the other side of that.
We did.
And it was no longer going to be a maintained lawn.
That's
And so
okay.
the-
I'll let it grow.
The conversation. And I don't have the previous one, but are some of these plantings moved, have they moved closer towards the 50-foot buffer?
Yeah, they're all the way up to it.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he's got one like just
Came
over
up
it.
here
Yeah.
on the sides.
Yeah, okay. So, I recall the conversation, we don't have the minutes, in front of us right now, but the way Rick represented the discussion is the way I remembered it, because I remember saying, full well that you can't go there, it's no longer going to be a maintained lawn.
Right.
So, where the plantings go, there's twice as many plantings now, where the plantings go is like a preference, we have a preference, you have a preference, but the main thing is the area cannot be maintained.
Yes.
And so, that's my feeling, about the matter, so.
I'm just gonna make one more comment. I noticed, Rick, on your first plan, you had conservation seed mix.
Yes. I talked to, and I remember we talked about that last time, and I did talk to Brooke about it. It is possible to oversee it and such, but we just decided to leave it out so we didn't have to tear up the ground and surface to plant that, so not included on this latest plan, no mix.
Okay.
Yeah, and the last time we had 16, it was 16 plants on the previous plan, and 28 on this. We're not quite doubled, but almost.
Okay, so it sounds like we have an understanding that there's no going beyond the 50-foot mark, the 50-foot
I
mark.
cannot maintain that lawn, I understand
Okay.
that.
And I understand that we differ in our opinions as far as the placement of the plantings go. But I think based on your understanding now and the placement of the conservation markers, I'm okay with this. Mike, did you have any special conditions?
Yeah, I would suggest the following. General conditions 1 through 18 are standard conditions. Prior to construction, condition 5 and 2 to have a pre-construction meeting. During construction, condition 11, ensure best management practices are followed. After construction, condition 1 to ensure that a certificate of compliance is filed, and then 2 years of monitoring from a wetland scientist, and then the reestablishment of the conservation markers noted on the site plan.
Was there anyone from the public who had any comments on this? All right, hearing none, I'm gonna move to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick. In the MCCs, Mike, The next thing I see is 248 Ridge Road, but we don't have anything on 248 Ridge Road.
Yeah, that must be a typo.
Is that a carryover from?
Yes, let me just double check the agenda, but that is a carryover, I believe. Apologies on that.
Not on the agenda.
No, it's not on the agenda, but it's in here.
Yes, that's a carryover. My apologies.
Okay. So the next item is SE 423123. This is a new hearing. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, to consider the after-the-fact notice of intent filed for 84 Bay Avenue, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Platt.
All right, Mike, can you confirm that abutters have been notified and taxes and fees have been met?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay, great. I just want to point out that this proposed work is in the following resource areas: Barrier Beach, coastal dune, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and within buffer zones to coastal bank and beach, and also in flood zone A03. Is there anyone here to present the work? You guys are, all right. All right, can you tell us about the after the fact?
Kevin Grady from Grady Consulting, along with Fred St. Hours. I'm representing Fred for the proposed notice of intent. As you indicated, Barrier Beach, dune, flood zone, etc. Plans up. The applicant was before the commission in 2016 for raise and rebuild of the structure that was there. He received an order of conditions that included an approved impervious area of 1,865 square feet, which was highlighted in yellow on the previous plan there. Yes. That's what the commission had approved for that project. The applicant asked us to prepare a certificate of compliance after he constructed the building in 2021, thinking that the building was constructed and he could move in, etc. He didn't realize that he still did not have, well, as soon as we submitted that and got it signed off, that he no longer had the approval to construct the concrete driveway that was approved in 2016. We weren't aware that he had intended to do that either, so we proceeded, did the survey, existing conditions, certified that it met the compliance requirements, and off we went. So then he proceeded to complete what he thought he had approval for, these concrete driveway on the, let's see, did you guys break up the plan? So it was
Yeah.
left to right.
There it is.
Okay. Yep, so that's what's constructed there today. Additionally, he installed some riprap boulders on the backside of the seawall to provide some stabilization. When you do get storms that overflow, it scours the sand that's there. He's seen that other properties have done this in the vicinity, and it has worked to stabilize the yard, but it also at the same time allows the water to infiltrate into the ground. And he's seen it work. He'd like to extend it a little bit as well, which we've added to the notice of intent to request that additional work. We provided a coverage table on the site plan. The previous approval was under The 2016 approval was 1,865 square feet of impervious coverage. The certificate of compliance reduced it down to 246 square feet, and currently what he's proposing is 1,300 square feet. So it's still a 500 square foot reduction over what was previously approved. The applicant requests that the commission approve the after-the-fact notice of intent and the extension of the proposed riprap scour protection. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Mike, do you have any comments first?
Yeah, pretty much as Mr. Grady described. I went out here in in response to a report from the building department regarding hardscape being constructed underneath the home at 84 Bay Avenue. Went on site and did notice the two concrete areas here and this one pad back here that were not noted on the certificate of compliance. Actually, the concrete pad was noted on the certificate of compliance, but the driveways were not. It was proposed that there would be driveways, but it was closed out with the certificate of compliance, so that permit is no longer active. Currently, the commission doesn't tend to encourage or approve hardscape in this type of barrier beach coastal dune area. I believe that's it.
Thank you. What was on the original back in, was it 2016 or 2019?
16.
16?
Yes.
Was it concrete? What type of material was proposed
Yes.
at that time?
Yeah, it was concrete.
It was the same. I do want to read the building commissioner comments that were provided for some information. So those comments, this area is subject to significant wave overwash and potential erosion and scour. Asphalt in this area is subject to scour but is frangible and can break into smaller pieces that do not create a hazard, but slabs have the potential to cause greater erosion and scour and more serious damage. So the commissioner recommends that slabs in this area be constructed if it were in a coastal A zone within the moderate wave action area. As this is after the fact filing, he'd recommend in this case that an engineer certify that the structure remains capable of resisting any added flood loads and effects of scour due to the presence of the slabs. So that's an option that we can talk about, just to make sure that, if that doesn't
Yes.
break up, and what's that extra flood load gonna do to the existing foundation?
Yep,
Do
we
you-
can,
yep.
if you want to add that as a condition, we can certify it. I can't certify it now.
Right.
But we can look at the specs and certify that it meets the standards that he's looking for. Review the specifications of the installation. I wasn't involved, so I can certainly do that.
Okay, all right. And we can maybe discuss, I don't know if you'd be amenable to doing any mitigation plantings on the existing, I think on the right-hand side, there's some lawn area. I believe when I was out there today, that's what I saw. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any issue with the extending the riprap per se. Commissioners, do you guys have any comments on that? Yeah. go ahead.
Yeah. So this riprap, is that currently there? Was that,
A portion of it is. So if you look at the far right, current plus proposed conditions, they're up against the back of the seawall. There's a light gray hatching, and then there's a darker hatching. It says proposed riprap. And then up above, you can see photos of the existing riprap in the
Yeah.
top right corner. So it's a,
you're trying to extend that?
yes, so that breaks up the overwash. It's a lot, those are pretty heavy stones. It takes a lot of force to move those. The retaining wall is taking the brunt of it, and then you have overwash, and those stones are placed into the ground, and there's additional crushed stone around them, and they're
I mean, how deep are they buried?
Well, the boulders are, I'd say the depth of the boulder is a little less than the breadth that you can see. In other words, they're kind of, we try to pick the flat surfaces, and it came out a lot better than I thought, actually. But,
And turn them up.
yeah, so I think so the width of what you're looking at is probably 6 or 7 feet, maybe 8 in a couple of spots. So the boulders, if they're 2 to 3 feet wide, are less than that in depth.
All right, so the area is considered coastal dune, correct?
It's considered coastal dune. We don't believe it's acting as a coastal dune. There's no mounds or sand forms. This site prior
There is
to,
sand,
sorry?
there is sand under,
There's no mounds.
that's because it was graded.
Because it was previously completely developed. I don't know if I have the photos from
The house that we tore down actually had a concrete slab there. And we had approval originally to replace that concrete slab. But I thought the boulders would be better because they're permeable. And, you know, I'm not like wasting my square feet I was allowed of, in my mind, impermeable. I thought the boulders would work, and they're working great so far, so I thought to extend them a little bit wouldn't be a bad thing, and there would be less sand to wash away when eventually the waves do come over the seawall.
So on the
function of
far left of the plan, the yellow that's on the back side of the wall, that was all concrete back in 2016. So that's been currently it's riprap now that allows some movement of sand and aggregate. It dissipates the energy of the waves a bit as well.
So, but sand was there previously? But-
Concrete.
Well, no, after the concrete was removed in 2016, then it was a sand dune. And then when did this riprap get placed?
I'm not sure if it was sand dune or what was on the ground there. You know, it was whatever was under the concrete and
Yeah, so
raked.
the builder put stone of this size for about that distance, say 7 or 8 feet out from the seawall. So when we raised the house, we took up the concrete pad that was there, and he put stone of about, say, 8-inch stone. Cobbles. And over the winter, they just washed out into the street and across the street, and they didn't hold up, so I thought that it would be far superior to use something heavy that would resist rather than the cobbles, and rather than having replacing the concrete pad, you know, which was originally planned.
Okay, so when did they get placed?
6 months ago, so.
Oh, the boulders?
Yeah, when did the
Yeah.
boulders get
Yeah,
placed?
probably July, this summer, June, July.
Okay, so were those captured in the,
Yes, they're shown on the site plan. The
well,
to the right.
they weren't, okay.
The riprap was placed after the
After the COC.
certificate of compliance was closed out. So that's why it's an after the fact.
Okay, I mean, it's not something I would have permitted because of, the function of the dune is to move and shift, and so it dissipates wave action. So this is just like a splash pad. It's basically an impervious. I don't see how, maybe between the cracks it could allow some water to infiltrate. I don't know, any other commissioners have any thoughts on that?
There be any benefit to planting seagrass in that area?
Between the rocks? I mean,
I do have a plan to plant seagrass and maybe those Montauk daisies, which seem to hold up on the, standing in the street on the right-hand side, which seems to get enough sun to support that. I've put a few in there just to see if they would survive, and so far they have. But I put them in kind of late in the summer, and I'm surprised that they seem to be still alive. So my plan is on that, so in that picture you're looking at now, on the right-hand side, to plant, especially at the seawall end, seagrass. I've got some out front on the left, I don't know if you can see it, but it seems to withstand the wave action, salt and everything, so that's my
Yeah,
my
that's what it's
plan
good
is.
for.
So you think planting the seagrass in between the riprap?
I don't know,
I don't
because I don't, I don't know how the riprap is actually functioning.
But according to this proposed conditions, they want to double, correct? The amount of riffraff?
Yeah, I'd like to, I think I thought it was a superior way to, I've been studying this for a couple of years, and, I didn't really realize my permit had expired. I thought I could do what I was allowed to do, and I was kind of doing it in a better way than a concrete pad. And it just didn't, there aren't too many examples of this exact situation, but in just, living there and watching and looking at what other people's results, I thought this was really a good way to catch the wave
Jesse?
and let water infiltrate into the ground. And I'd like to do a little bit more, because what I don't do there eventually will get pushed out, because it is just sand and stone and gravel,
Understood. Andrew, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. This is a difficult situation because a house like this one, basically what they did is they took an old house that used to have all sorts, where all the riprap is in this picture, that was all concrete. It was all concrete, and it was a solid house that used to be there right, several feet below where the current house is. And it was right up to the seawall, and you just had the continuous flow of overwash going across that concrete, hitting the old house, whatever. So they've made a concerted effort to knock down the old house and improve the lot by putting a floodplain proofed house with, open pilings here. And, it's really tough because we have a seawall, and it really changes the whole definition of coastal dunes and coastal beaches and all this kind of stuff and the true impact of the area. And if you can see in this picture on the far right, the neighbor to the right, or to that side, to the closest side, has all concrete patio. And the neighbor on the other side has all concrete patio. So every time the waves hit that seawall, they go over, they hit the concrete patio, and all the water rushes onto this property. And that's common throughout a lot of the properties up and down Bay Ave and these other type of, barrier beaches, Foster Ave, that have improved those properties. So it's kind of a, situation where they're totally improving the property by eliminating the concrete, but they're also putting themselves at an extremely vulnerable position where all the water gets redirected into their now more impervious property than the ones that surround them. So I do think that some sort of allowance or mitigation needs to be implemented for how we deal with that overwash, you know, and it's tough. I've heard the same argument from many different people, but it's really a something I think that you guys kind of got to understand that there's a lot of impact coming from the neighbors that are pre-existing, non-compliant, and are directing a lot of the overwash right onto this now compliant property, and what that impact does. I personally do not think that any plantings within these large rocks will survive any season. Because of the water that comes from the surrounding properties, but I think everything should be kind of maybe geared more to larger impacts happening closer to the seawall and then dissipating impacts as we get closer to the street. And that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public on Zoom have any comment? Okay. Did you guys have any other?
I would just say that I think the most, what is of concern here is making sure that scour isn't being created by those pads, which is going to
Right.
potentially undermine the foundation. And in Andrew's comments, yeah, he recommended an engineer chiming in on that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this was originally permitted
Right.
to have a paved driveway. And we have a better situation, but for your protection, you want to make sure those pads aren't going to have, you know, particularly if water is, now you're the impervious
Right,
surface.
right.
It's coming from all sides.
Do we know how thick the concrete slabs are? How thick the slabs are?
Concrete.
They didn't look, I couldn't tell because they were,
They're between 4 and 6 inches. Somebody asked me that last time.
yeah.
It could be 6.
So just another, if they're over 4, then just another reason to make sure that the structure's good to go. Do we want to see about some planting though on that right side? You're gonna do
that.
beach grass anyway?
I would love to try that. It'd make it look better. And on the right side, I don't think anything will survive in between the stone.
Yep.
For one thing, it doesn't get much sun down there.
Are we all comfortable with the extension of the boulders, or?
I don't
Corey,
really
no.
know why we need to extend it, but
I do. I mean, I think we've talked about this a lot. We're probably going to talk about it more tonight. And I do understand the purpose of this, to kind of dissipate the overtopping. And I guess the counter argument is, it is a coastal dune, or was at one point. Whether it's an active coastal dune now because of the wall is kind of up for interpretation and questioning. And we've talked about that a lot. I guess for this particular situation, Craig, you made, it was approved that all could be impervious at this point.
Right, I mean,
So
that was
it's-
2016, that, it would be different if this project came in front of us today from the
Right.
start.
right.
But that's where we are, so I don't know whether putting more riprap in there serves a purpose.
I don't
Is
see-
it potentially going to protect the concrete driveway in any way?
I think it's too far away. Oh, actually,
The proposed,
the closest one, I guess, isn't that far away.
I can't answer that.
is that
Yeah, I
Just
can't,
from what
I
I've
don't
seen
know.
in other situations that are similar to this, is that waves come over the top, and as they drain away, they kind of pull soil away from this riprap. They pull soil away, and then the rocks end up causing more scour, and I've seen in other places where the seawall, and this seawall's pretty new, so it's probably pretty deep, but I've seen in other places where the water comes up from underneath the seawall and just starts sucking sand away from the piles, and then your structure's compromised. So I just.
I've been really studying what goes on there. You know, we've been there for around 11 years. And I pay a lot of attention because I'm in harm's way. The other house was in such harm's way that we had to take it down. And without this riprap that I put in for the last couple of years, I would, after the winter, I would get scoured out a trough that would be at least the depth of those boulders that we would have to fill back in. And the material that came out of there would be partly underneath my house and partly out in the street, and some of it would get washed across the street. It'd be a problem for the neighbors, which I cleaned up. So I think I'm reducing that kind of a problem. That's why, you know, this riprap, I think, is gonna work really good. And I just thought if I could extend it a little more, it would be less material. You know, we're taking the power of the overtopping wave and catching it on these rocks rather than having it scoop out the sand. And even what I have now dissipates. We haven't had a lot of big northeasters since we've done it, it's only a few months. But it really seems to be working really well, and that's why I thought I'd like to extend it a few more feet, if you would allow that.
I don't know how to,
I don't know either. How would we figure out? And that's not something we've done.
yeah, I mean,
Before.
I'm not qualified to make a determination on how that riprap works, and
How that will function and.
that is above my pay grade. What if we said, you know, okay, we're gonna condition this so that one of the conditions will be an engineering
Right.
analysis of potential scour. And we say, at this time, hold off on additional riprap. And going forward, perhaps when an engineer determines how these slabs will function with scour, they may be able to chime in on whether or not additional riprap is
Yeah, these-
going to be useful or
Yeah, I mean,
detrimental.
If we're gonna have an engineer look at the slabs, right?
Yes.
Then we should ask them the question about the additional riprap, then is that helpful to support, you know, the long-term viability of the slabs? Is it not needed?
Yes, these stones definitely are acting as an energy dissipator. When that wave comes over and it lands on it, it's, you know, hitting those large stones and, you know, pushing out a little bit more.
But from a resource standpoint, it's counteracting, I think what Corey was getting at, what an actual dune is supposed to do. Right?
The other thing it's doing is keeping it from channelizing, because it's equalizing it out over that entire space. What was happening before, when there was a concrete foundation, it would channelize in between the houses and would rip through there. Now it can hit that energy dissipator, flatten out, and proceed underneath the house. So it is an energy dissipator. As far as movement of sands, I guess sand can certainly blow on top of it, and you know, but you have wave action, and this is a moving land mass. You know, it's continuously moving. So I think it's serving the purpose that he wants. I don't think it's causing an adverse impact to the barrier beach, because it is ultimately natural stones. It isn't a concrete slab. It isn't stopping water from penetrating into the ground. It's crushed stone. It's large stone instead of crushed stone. So
But
we're getting
what
infiltration and energy dissipation out of it.
just my concern is that if, without a geotextile fabric underneath, you're just creating an opportunity for the stones to just, to sink, essentially, and then, that's all.
Yeah, I wasn't out here. I don't know if there's a crushed stone base or anything.
There is.
So typically you would chink it, right, with a crushed stone, and as you make the area get smaller and smaller, it binds together. It's
We don't know what's under it.
usually going the other direction from the top to the bottom to keep silt from coming in. But it does provide a base.
All right, I'd still like to hold off on, in my opinion, extending the riprap. And then, conditioning, the engineer, coming in, and hopefully that we can get a little bit more information from that. Mike, do you have any, conditions that you want to outline for this?
Yes, I would suggest the standard special conditions, 1 through 18. Prior to construction, condition 5 and 2, to have a pre-construction meeting. During construction, condition 11, ensure best management practices are followed. After construction, condition 1, to file for a certificate of compliance at the completion of work. Erosion control, condition 1, to ensure that erosion control is in place throughout the duration of work. And there's the option for a planting area, as the commission discussed. There's also the option that an engineer evaluate potential scour on the site, and also an option that the additional riprap could be evaluated by said engineer and then discussed during a later business item.
Okay, so we would revisit that as a business item once that's done, correct? Okay.
We're amenable to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Then I am going to move to close the hearing, issue an order of conditions to include the conditions listed by Mike. Can I have a second, please?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. Can I say nay?
Yeah, absolutely.
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 Nay.
All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just say, the more plants you can get on that property, the better. They are the best dissipators of and absorbers of the water.
As I can, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is 34 Kearsarge Road. This is a new hearing. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, to consider the notice of intent filed for 34 Kearsarge Road, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Malafronte.
Thank you. Mike, have all administrative requirements been met?
All administrative requirements have been met with the exception of the floodplain permit. The applicant has never filed for a floodplain permit. I checked the system right before this meeting, and there was not one in there.
Okay. This property is located in the R3 zoning district in the AO3 land subject to coastal storm flowage. Is there a representative here to discuss this project?
Yep.
Scott Bernard with Grade Consulting.
Okay.
So what we have here is a single-family dwelling on a fully developed lot. It's in the AO flood zone. It's one of the kind of newer flood zones in the past maybe 3 or 4 years now. It's AO elevation of 3. Ironically, the flood zone that has an elevation associated with an AE is the property just to the left. The elevation's actually at 9. So we're above the AE 9, but because we're in the AO 3 feet, it's a requirement to have this elevated at least 3 feet above grade. What they're proposing here is to extend that deck that's on the left side of the house as you're looking from the street to the rear of the yard, the rear of the property. That area is fully developed. It's all maintained lawn. So the deck there will be elevated about 4 feet. So in addition to meeting the requirement from the flood zone, there's a setback requirement that has to be met. And the setback is allowed to be reduced in half. It keeps it under 4 feet. So we're kind of balancing right between the above 3 feet, below the 4 feet. This property is, I think, 6 properties away from the ocean there. And again, this is all going to be above grade. There's no site work or anything required. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any commissioner comments on this project? I will add, as Michael indicated, the building commissioner did comment that this project has not applied for a flood permit, and he has not seen any plans for this project thus far. I don't have any comments or issues with this project. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment or question on this? Hearing none. Mike, do you have suggested conditions for this?
Yes, I have suggested conditions. General conditions 1 through 18 are standard special conditions. Prior to construction, condition 5 and 2, to have a pre-construction meeting with myself or the conservation agent. During construction, condition 11, ensure best management practices are followed. After construction, condition 1, to file for a certificate of compliance at the completion of work. Erosion control, condition 1, to ensure erosion control is in place throughout work. And that would be it. The commission may consider requiring the submittal of a floodplain permit ahead of any actual issuance of the permit. Say, give them until Friday or Monday to file the floodplain permit.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good idea. With those conditions, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and issue the order of conditions. Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye?
Thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go on to 2160 Ocean Street. This is a new hearing. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by the Town of Marshfield. And the hearing officer is Commissioner Miles.
Okay. Mike, have all administrative requirements been met?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Finn. Do you want to talk about this project?
I do. My name is William Finn, 96 Dog Lane. I'm a consultant to the Conservation Commission. Mike, if you, yeah, okay. You can see up on the screen a site plan of the site that, at 2160 Ocean Street. And the red outline is the outline of the bin blocks that we have established on that site to contain the excavated material that will be coming to the site from the Veterans Memorial Park project, which is the removal of the South River Dam and rehabilitation of the Veterans Park. If you show, you see Ocean Street to your left and the South River to the right of that site plan on the right side. The bin blocks are located at least 70 to 80 feet away from the bank of the river, but certainly more than 50 feet, and they are also out of the floodplain. The next picture is showing you the bin blocks from Ocean Street looking down toward them, down the driveway, toward the bin blocks. Now, those bin blocks, as you see them there, that picture was taken December 24th. Those bin blocks have been moved slightly because at the time, on the left-hand side of the picture, as you look at it, the bin blocks were encroaching over the property line about 4 feet. So we moved those bin blocks on the left-hand side, moved them over a little bit to the right-hand side, so they were certainly on the town's property. But I thank Susan Karen for pointing that out to us the other day, so we took care of that right away. So that if you can go to the next picture, Mike, you can see where the bin blocks look at the rear of the bin blocks. That's from the riverbank. That's how far away they are from the riverbank. And that's the chair and I were out there this afternoon, and we saw the contractor actually measure the distance 50 feet from the, and they were at least 20 feet or 30 feet away from us we were standing at the bin block. So they were a good 70 to 80 feet away from the bank. And they have been located so that they're not in the floodplain. The total volume that these bin blocks can hold, if we go back to the picture that shows the front of the mic. Yeah, there you go. The total volume that they're divided in half, and there's a good reason for that. Because one half of those bin blocks is going to hold what we call wet mud, and the other half of the bin blocks, or not half, whatever the portion is going to hold what we refer to as dry material, dry soil. And there are 3 types of soil that we anticipate bringing up to this site at some point in time. The total volume that the bin blocks will hold is about 300 cubic yards. About 80 cubic yards of wet material, and 220 cubic yards of dry material. And the reason that you can make that differentiation, it seems like a lot, is that you can stack the dry material. You can't stack the wet material. It's just going to slough off on you. So that's the reason for the difference in the cubic yards. So we can, I should say that initially the reason that we decided to bring material to this site was because ultimately, and as Susan can explain if we need to, this site it's been recommended that this site should require some fill material to be brought onto it to alleviate some issues of concern of minor contamination. And so it was, I think, estimated that maybe we'd need 3 feet deep of clean fill, and then another 2 feet of topsoil. So maybe a total of 5 feet of fill on the site when it's graded finally for a park. We thought that we would have some excess material available to kind of contribute to that fill material and save the town some money. And that is still the intent, if it's suitable, only if the material is suitable for fill and it meets the requirements that their design engineer establishes, will we use it. Otherwise, we'll just take it off the site. So currently, we can say only that we're just storing material there. If it eventually is used as fill, that's good. It saves the town some money. If it's not suitable, then we'll remove it from the site. The three types of soil that I've referred to, Mike, if you could go to picture number there, okay. This is a picture of we've been experimenting, or not experimenting with this, but we've been using this material, this technique, I should say, of the bin blocks that are lined. They're lined with a geotextile, and that picture there shows you what the wet soil, what I refer to as wet soil or mud, looks like the day it was put into the bin blocks. And that stick was just, the contractor put the stick down, that's about 6 inches of water on top of the mud that was just put into that section of bin blocks. We can see in the next slide, Mike. That's what it looks like 7 days later. That much water has gone into the groundwater, drained from the site, and that's what the mud looks like 7 days after being put into the bin block. So it does consolidate pretty quickly. If I can see the next slide, Mike. This is the back of the bin blocks with the filter fabric lifted up, so you could see whether there's any drainage through that back portion of the bin blocks, and there is none. It's dry, the wood chips are dry, there's nothing coming through, so that's going down, it's not coming through the sides or the back. And go to the next slide, Mike. Again, that's taken a couple of days after that first one, and you can see that, so this is a week or so after the material's been in there. You can see the level of the mud is down significantly if you look at the far edge or the far side of the bin blocks. And you can see also that they're very clean. There's nothing leaking through that fabric filter. Everything is going down. Even the wood chips around there aren't even wet. So, and then we have obviously the erosion control core blankets next as erosion control. So we're going to do the same thing at 2160. We're not going to use the wood chips, but we are going to put the erosion control and all the bin blocks will be lined, fully lined, so that this process works. We know it works. We've been using it, but we are in desperate need, as Sam can tell you, because he was down there today, as it was with the chair. We are desperately space. We have no space at all. We have piles of soil everywhere, and we need to get rid of it. So, but if we could go to the next slide, Mike. This is a picture of the site at Veterans Park. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because I talked about 3 different types of soil, or 3 sources of soil that we'll be bringing to 2160. The first source is the mud. If you look at the lagoon the heart-shaped lagoon that is colored in pink. That's where the wet mud from the lagoon excavation came from that I showed you in that first slide, where there was all water, about 6 inches of water on top of it. It came from that mud, the excavation of that lagoon. The drier material that I referred to, the other type of soil that we're going to see, is going to come from behind the dam, which is between those two coffer dams that are those two blue-colored dams that cross the South River, the coffer dams. The dam, the South River Dam is in the middle there. You can see the structure. Behind that dam, there's a buildup of material. We believe it's primarily sand and gravel that's built up over the years. And there's some mud in it, but not a lot. That is the material that we think will go in the dry side of the bin blocks at 2160 and be able to be stacked. We don't think we'll be able to stack the mud, but we think we'll be able to stack this material. So that's the difference between the cubic yards in the two sections of the bin blocks. And the third type of soil that we're talking about that may not get up there is dry dirt. If you look at the the green corridor at the bottom of that slide, that is the channel, the bypass channel that we are digging right now. And that is through, at least on the surface, for at least the top 2 feet, 2 to 3 feet, dry soil with grass. That's the topsoil that's on that site. That material we think we're going to keep down at the Veterans Park, but we may bring it up if we have to, and we have room, to 2160. So that's what I consider to be dirt, dry soil. So that's the 3 different types and the locations where they may come from. In terms of the questions that were asked by Susan Consultant Shadley, we're going to need to start bringing soil to that site tomorrow. Between tomorrow and the 17th, we will be finished with the wet side of the bin blocks. The drier side, or the material that's going to come from behind the dam, the mineral soil, type soil, and the mud, will be delivered to 2160 beginning toward the end of February, and for 2 weeks. So the last 2 weeks maybe in February, or maybe the last week in February, the first week of March. And I know Shadley has requested that, they don't want to get in and interfere with us delivering material. What we have said is, please just tell us when you want to go to the site. Shadley's people want to go to the site, and we won't deliver. That day, we will just avoid bringing trucks in. So we're just going to coordinate with them. We'll let them take, when they have to go on the site, they'll go on the site. And we won't deliver that day.
Could you just clarify who Shadley is?
I'm
for
sorry.
everyone?
I thought people knew. Shadley is Susan, the consultant that's been hired by the Open Space Committee to design this playground. This site has now been purchased by the town, it's owned by the town, and the design money was allocated at this past December special meeting. So Shadley is the consulting firm, landscape architects that have been hired to design the park. So I'm sorry, I thought you knew that. But they have asked the question, how are they going to interface with us? And I've tried to answer that here. So I'll stop now, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Well, I guess just the main question I had is has there been any testing of the material for contaminants?
Yes, all of the material that, well, I say all of the material has been tested, yes, not all of it, obviously. But I think you received the reports from the chair. We've had 2 rounds of testings, and the locations are all shown in the testing material that or the test results that you saw, that you should have received. There was a round done in 2019, and then there was a round done in 2023. Both requested by DEP as part of their water quality certification program. And all those reports have been sent to the DEP and approved, and we've been all permitted. So that information has been, I think we tried to supply it all to you. As we also supplied that information to Shadley so that they could see it and they could evaluate it. And their remarks, I believe, if you were sent the email between the DPW and the DEP people indicate that this material has been cleared for use as just dirt, basically.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions or comments?
I have a question. What is the transport from Veterans Park to, I know it's only 3 properties through the intersection, but what is the thought process to get the material there?
What is the thought process of getting
What
it
is
there?
Like the trucks?
Yeah. So you indicate that a lot of the material is going to be wet material, right?
Yeah, well, they're gonna truck it, but it's, well, I call it wet material, but it's material that is not gonna have any free water,
Okay.
so that when they truck it. If there is any potential for free water, they will line the trucks.
They're dewatering it, right?
That's right now, the material that I showed you,
Right.
which was the very wet,
With the sick.
then the next 7 days later, it was down. That's the material that's going to be transported. There is also some mixed drier material with that. And we believe that's going to be transported, they're going to start transporting it tomorrow. If it's at all wet, if there's any free water, they will line the trucks.
Okay. That was the lining of the trucks is what I
Yeah,
was
we got a
thinking.
line,
I just-
obviously, it can't be transported if there's going to be free water.
Right, and obviously the transport of sediment out of the site onto the roadway and then into, is there going to be a construction entrance proposed at 2160? Because it's just pavement, correct? That it's like a curb cut with pavement?
It's like a ramp that goes down
Paved, right?
in that is paved. And it's fenced, there's a locked fence now, but they will back the trucks down there.
I guess the question is do you anticipate any sediment transport from 2160 out onto the roadway?
No.
Okay.
We're very cautious about
Yeah.
any of this stuff. We can't drip that stuff out onto the highway.
Yeah,
Not
that's
gonna
what
happen.
I think it's worth discussing. And then I guess the construction entrance specifically for Veterans Park, I know there's not too many other locations. It's right on the corner. I don't think the original intent of that was to have any really traffic coming in and out besides dropping of machinery and then very minimal. Like, was there any thought process on traffic control for that?
Yes, we have an arrangement with the Marshfield Police.
Okay.
For a police detail if needed. Right now, so far, we've been able to get trucks in and out without a problem.
Okay.
Because we've timed it such that we've tried to, avoid peak traffic hours.
Do it in the middle of the day
Yeah, and that's right, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
But we also have, flagged men out there, and if the police can't make it, and that's happened too. We've requested a police detail and they just can't fill it.
Yeah.
So in that case, they've allowed us to put flagmen out there.
Okay. I have no issues besides that.
Okay. Yeah, just one more question. And this is gonna be a temporary storage area, correct?
This is going to be temporary storage unless they want to use it for fill at the
Oh.
site. If they decide that it's suitable for fill and we can mix it with other fill. If I could point to this drawing. You see that heart-shaped lagoon, there's the blue line that goes through it, and it's a blue stripe. Originally, that was the same sandbags that were going to be used as the cofferdam. Instead of that, because of the situation that developed in terms of the substrate at the bottom of that lagoon would not really support these huge sandbags, what the contractor did was bring in dry sand. So that blue line, instead of being cofferdams with big sandbags and big plastic sandbags full of sand, it's a berm of sand. It's free sand, it's dry sand, it's a berm. That material will have to find a home someplace. We don't know whether or not that material might be suitable for mixing with other material we have on the site and bring it up to 2160. That will be up to their consultant to determine whether it's suitable or not. So we need, I don't know how many, probably 500 cubic yards of material on our own site, because what we're going to do is we're going to close off that heart-shaped lagoon with a peninsula of land to control the water, so that heart-shaped lagoon entrance, as you see it there now, is not going to exist anymore. There's going to be a peninsula that closes that gap and narrows it down so that everything is controlled and it goes through the water wheel. So we need fill for that. So we need fill on our own site. So to say it's only for storage, it may be only for storage. Certainly it's only for storage if it's not suitable for fill on the site. But we may wind up bringing more fill up there if it's suitable, or we may wind up taking it away and using it ourselves.
Okay. Any other comments? Comments from the public? Any special conditions, Mike?
Yeah, I would suggest the following for special conditions. Ensure best management practices are followed before commencing the work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see the administrator agent for guidance on work beyond the approved work activity. And I would suggest issuing this as a +5 and -2.
All right, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing, issue a determination of applicability with +5 and a -2. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right?
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, 17 Oregon Road. This is a new hearing. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, to consider the notice of intent filed for 17 Oregon Road, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Malafronte.
Mike, have all administrative requirements been met for this project?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay. Looks like we have representatives or the applicant. If you guys wanted to introduce the project, introduce yourselves.
This is,
Sure. Yeah, I can get us kicked off.
Okay.
My name is John Zimmer. I'm with South River Environmental.
With me this evening are Frank Powell, who is the applicant, as well as Dick Rockwood from Rockwood Design. This project is actually the resubmittal of a notice of intent that was initially submitted back in 2021 for the same scope of work, which includes an addition to the existing residence, a new deck, and a new garage. We had gone through, the hearing process with the commission. The biggest question that arose during that process was whether or not the property is considered a coastal dune. And we went back and forth on this quite a bit and engaged Rebecca Haney from CZM as well. One of the main questions that the commission raised and requests that the commission had at the time was to do subsurface investigation within the property to see if it is in fact a sand form, which would basically be the remnants of a historic coastal dune. The property itself is not located within a barrier beach, so it is technically not coastal dune by default, which occurs with barrier beaches. They're either coastal dune or coastal beach. So unfortunately, there were some circumstances with Mr. Powell that we needed to withdraw the NOI before we could complete that work. Subsequent to that time, we did come across some subsurface information that was done associated with the sewer extension that came down Oregon Road. And within the application package, I provided the results of soil test pits that were done directly within Oregon Road, directly in front of the subject property. And those investigations went down about 10 feet and found that the materials within that area were sand, gravel, and boulders. So those materials are more indicative of glacial outwash than they are of a coastal dune. So that supported our assertion that the property, is not in fact a coastal dune, nor does it function as a coastal dune. So we submitted the application package again with that additional information. We are also continuing to include the mitigation that was proposed during that initial hearing process, which is about 2,000 square feet of native plantings, as well as conservation markers around, I think it's the southern and western perimeter of the property. Stormwater associated with the addition and garage will be routed into dry wells within the property, so there'll be no direct surface discharge of stormwater associated with the new construction. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. So, what we'd like to do is, I know that Craig and I believe Bert were part of that original process. So, certainly we'd like to open it up to questions that the commission may have, and, happy to discuss the project further.
Thank you. Are there, are there any commissioner comments? Craig,
Actually, John was also here for
Oh,
this. I
yeah,
believe
sorry for that.
it was his first meeting
My very
as
first
a
meeting on the
commissioner
commission. I was exposed
when
to
this was filed.
So I just had a question, and I'm not sure if I understood correctly. So where we all left off in '22 and I think January '23, there was.
I think it was July of '23 we went through it, yeah.
July of '22, and then didn't we withdraw in January of '23?
May of
May.
23, but we had, the final hearing that we had was January 18th of 2023.
Yes, yeah.
And then the withdrawal came in.
Yeah.
At that point, we said we wanted soil testing.
Yeah, yeah, at that time.
And then you, in May,
Withdrew.
I had some
Okay.
personal issues with
Yeah,
it.
so that's all, I guess, I'm sorry, yeah, so it's July of 2022, we had some hearings, and in January 2023, it was the final meeting, hearing.
And then we
you
extended it
withdrew.
for a few
Yeah.
minutes, and then we.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, a lot of the conversation was around whether or not to do a soil survey, correct? And, it was asked for, and it never happened, we went to, now, did I just hear that there was soil surveys done adjacent to this property recently?
Well, it actually wasn't recently, it was back in 76.
Oh.
When they put the sewer extensions down the roadways, they did soil test pits, all throughout the kind of the Fieldston area. And, we didn't know that at the time when we were, originally going through the hearing process. So we did come across that information at Town Hall and found that there was actually a test boring basically directly in front of 17 Oregon within the road layout. And that showed that the material subsurface down to 10 feet was basically sand, gravel, and boulders.
Okay, that's all I was, that was the
Yeah.
new information
Correct.
that has been introduced.
Exactly.
It wasn't new information, or new data that was developed post-January of 2023.
Correct.
That's correct.
This data and information preceded all that. Okay, that's all, that's what I was just trying to clarify in my mind, that this new information presented is old, original information, not post the request for a soil
Right.
survey.
It's old, new information.
That's a good way. Everything old is new again, okay. All right, thank you.
John, I have a question regarding the borings. It's tough to tell based on the screenshots, but what was the interval? Is 75 on this plan or 77? Like, how frequent? What was
Yeah,
that?
76 was the only one done in Oregon Road. I think they did one or maybe two within the roadways. If Andrew's on, he may have a better understanding of what the intervals were with respect to the borings. But that was the only one that was that was the closest boring location to 17 Oregon.
Yeah, I have a difficult time, first of all, the specifications and techniques used / who was observing the borings at that time, to kind of make an assertion that the one boring out of 18 that are shown in the area, it just so happens that one had the boring hit a boulder, right? Or hit a couple boulders, to kind of make an assertion that it's more of a glacial till than a dune. I think it just stems back to, I've read most of the meeting minutes. I think there was 5 or 6, or 4 or 5, I should say. And it seems, I don't know if the commission's going to have a similar conclusion kind of to where you guys left off a few years ago, but I don't feel comfortable that that one boring kind of clarifies the question that was raised then, and it doesn't appear that it's been kind of justified. I did read through some of the minutes, kind of referenced it. It doesn't seem like a significant operation and cost to perform the requested information or provide the requested information. So I'm not sure the hesitancy if that's a request from the board. But I think that I would probably just support kind of where we left off, or where the commission left off a few years ago, and kind of have the same stance until that soil survey or analysis is performed on site. I don't know if any other commissioners have a comment or regarding that. And I will add, it is pretty clear, both from the DEP's response initially from the filing, back in, what was it, 21, I think the initial filing was, as well as throughout the meeting minutes, it's clear that the burden of proof is on the applicant to represent that it's not a barrier or coastal dune, as opposed to basically using mapping to prove that it's not. You have to provide sufficient information to satisfy that it is not a coastal dune or, yeah.
Okay, we could go back and look at the other borings as well and see where 71, well, basically 71 through 76 all had either peat, loose sand, or sand and gravel. We could map those out as well if that would be helpful to kind of show that.
I think it would be more helpful to just have the analysis done on site. To be honest, this boring was performed, and I know subsurface conditions don't change in the course of 50 years, but the techniques and also the observations that were performed on those borings is unknown. And I think that just is a giant question mark. I don't know if it was just the drill rig operator. Basically, if they were laying sewer main, the only thing they weren't looking for, they just didn't want to hit ledge, really, because otherwise you'd have to blast. So it's really, if it's just the drill rig operator punching a bunch of holes, making sure they don't hit ledge down the roadway, it's not really anyone qualified to make a geological assessment of the soils and such.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It could have been, but it's just not. I don't have that information. I don't think we're going to get that information. I would assume the person who did the work or might not be around anymore. So
It's probably a fair assumption.
yeah. So I think the easiest path forward would probably be to pick up where the commission left off a few years back and having that survey or assessment performed on site. That's at least how I feel, based on my understanding of this property and the project.
Makes sense.
I would agree. Ooh, I believe Commissioner Stewart is raising his hand. Andrew?
Yeah, I apologize. I actually was not able to view any of this whole hearing up until this point. I had troubles connecting. But I did hear the last little bit. I feel like the Conservation Commission is moving in the direction of not approving this project. Again, I would say that technically this project falls outside of any of the buffer areas of any actually delineated resource area. The only resource area this project is in is land subject to coastal storm flowage. I understand the nature of the property, but if we're looking at it as, from a strictly floodplain management building code aspect of it, it is completely allowable in this area. It has been allowed in the property across the street and all this other stuff. So that's the only thing I would say. I haven't really, like I said, I had connection issues and I wasn't able to be a part of what was happening beforehand, but that's what I would say about this project.
Thank you. I don't think, I take exception to your assumption that we are moving towards not approving this. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet. We're just, once again, trying to make sure we fulfill our responsibility to correctly define the resource area.
And I apologize about that. That was, I didn't mean to presume on that. I just, like I said, I I only just joined in the last couple of seconds before I was asked to speak, so I only heard the last comment that was said, so I apologize about that.
Right. Andrew, if it's okay, if I could ask you a question? Mr.
Sure.
Chair?
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, at the beginning of the hearing, prior to when you were on it, I did present the information from the subsurface investigations that were done to support the sewer main extension through Fieldston, and discussed the boring location right in front of the residence at 17 Oregon. One question did come up with respect to the layout of the borings. Do you know exactly how those were laid out, and the one or two other boring locations that might be in closest proximity to the property?
Yeah, John, thanks. When the whole issue of trying to do any sort of subsurface investigation as to what might be on this property several years ago, as it resurfaced again, as this project resurfaced again, I knew that we had done some work down on Plymouth Ave and some of these different, and Surf Ave and some of these other roads for Eversource and also for sewer connections. And so I had asked the director of the wastewater treatment plant, Clint Stetson, if he had any information about what the actual soils were like in this area, and he then expressed to me that yes, we do have some soils information about, when everything was originally drilled and found out, what exists 10, 20, 30 feet below the soil, and how they drained, and that allowed them to design the sewer systems for the entire area. And so I don't think that any of those conditions from when they designed the sewer systems have changed, quite honestly, in this resource area. I think obviously the seawall has maintained everything behind it for the most part, other than a few extreme storm events. And I think that that's kind of what we have to focus on, are those extreme storm events in this type of an area.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. So I guess what would the commission like for next steps?
I just don't, I guess I don't quite understand the hesitancy to just provide the information requested. Is there?
If I could put into that.
Yeah.
So, I'm a homeowner. This is all new to me. I've been trying to learn it. It's a lot to grasp and understand the different things. And we are in an AO flood zone. We're not in a Barrier Beach area. I have 5 neighbors or 6 neighbors in the same exact area that didn't have to do soil testing. If you visit the property, and I've owned it since 2013, it's never acted like a dune. So if I do soil samples, what does that tell us? If I do pit soils, what does it tell us? What if it comes up, it's all sand? What does that tell us as a commission? Because the next question would be, is it acting as a dune? Right? So how do you determine that? I can tell you how to determine it. I live there. Nothing changes in the lot. It's been level for 13 years, since 2013. Nothing changes. My neighbors across the street, 24 Oregon Road, I saw when they dug up his lot. There was sand and there was mixed. There was a lot of sand. He wasn't subject to doing soil samples. I'll give you a few other ones. 32 Surf Road, 125, Surf Ave, I'm sorry, 125 Surf Ave, 55 Constellation Road, 62 Constellation Road. They all have foundations in, and they weren't subject to doing soil samples, because that's not what the regulation calls for. If the regulation called that I was in a different area and we had to do soil samples, then I would understand it. And there's another one, 60 Foster Ave, which is directly on the beach wall in the same two areas. It's AO and it's non-barrier beach area. They didn't have to do soil samples. So, yeah, so.
If I could, I believe the Wetlands Protection Act says if the commission requests it, that it's at the burden of the applicant. And Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, that's generally what, so although it doesn't require it, if the commission does request it, it is something that,
Okay, so if we do soil samples and it comes back, it's sand, what's the next step? I just want to know, I'm not, like, why, if you tell me, then that's the end of it. You know, we're not going to approve this project. Or do we also look at, does it act like a dune? Because it's not acting like a dune. Have you visited the property?
I have not.
Okay, so if you
I
come
live
down, I'd be
very
more
close,
than
though.
happy to meet you there with John
Yep.
and Andrew and show you it, because I think that's where the proof in the pudding. I've owned it since 2013. It doesn't act as a dune. I am willing to put in mitigation with the wells and the plantings, so that doesn't happen. But I also understand, why do other people in my neighborhood not have to do the soil sample?
yeah, I can't speak to, I mean, I've,
Well, we should speak to it.
yeah, I mean, I think if they were to
Commissioner
come.
Malafronte, if I may.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scope of this work is very large. As we can see on the screen here, the addition is about the same size as the existing structure on the house. The lot itself is largely undeveloped. As we can see from this here, this is the volleyball court that's been maintained on the property for quite some time. It does have dune-like features as dune grasses. It does have mounds of erodible material, which is the definition of a dune. So that is part of the reason why this has come into question. A standard raise and rebuild, a standard deck in this area may not have the same concern from the commission, but this is a large scope of work for the area.
Yeah, and if I will add that some of the projects you mentioned, I'm not sure of the timing. I've only been on the commission for just under a year. I think the scrutiny of any of those other projects were to submit an application now for a similar scope, I would assume we would probably take the same level of review and scrutiny.
It has never happened on any of the jobs, a lot of them I designed. And they've,
I will
never been
point
asked or
out-
requested to do.
Nothing this commission does ever sets a precedent.
Right.
And as you point out, yeah, a raise and rebuild is the same footprint on the same property. This is a significant expansion.
And I'm not disagreeing with that, but if you look at the lot, it's 3 lots. Most of the lots in the neighborhood are 4,000 to 5,000 feet. This was originally 3 lots, they combined it as one. Even with the addition, I'm gonna have much more space that's still developable in the thing compared to my neighbors who have hardly any. So it's a very big lot considered the neighborhood, and there'll still be plenty of area to do the mitigation with the drainage and so forth like that. It's not a typical lot in the neighborhood. And if you know, like, I invite anyone of the commission to come down, we can meet you with John and Andrew. And from day one, I consulted with Andrew. I asked what was allowable in this area. We then went ahead with the design and all this stuff. And I feel like I'm being held to a higher standard compared to my neighbors. And I understand you can say precedent, but I think if you were sitting on the other side of the table, you might have a different agree to that. And then I'd like this, if it is sand, and I do the test, what's the next step? So if it's sand, then it's a dead issue?
There can be, I believe, a case made for a non-functioning dune.
I think it's just.
Can you speak to that at all, Corey, or?
I don't think we want to go there.
No, we really don't, but,
Because that would entail, more studies, and we don't want to put that on there, but I think the only thing that would change is that it wouldn't be on a foundation. It would be on piles. That's
Right.
building.
I guess that's my question, kind of, like, I don't quite grasp the kind of resilience to not just, it does appear that there's dune-like features out there.
But it's not, but the question is it acting as a dune? And no one's answered that question.
I don't think that is a requirement, though,
we need
if I'm not mistaken.
bottom line, we are trying to establish, is it a dune or is it not a dune? And that's going to require some subsurface.
And this is the first time this has ever been requested on any lot in an area. Now, I design houses based on what the state gives me. So, we go have meetings and we say, great, you are not in a barrier beach, therefore you designed it this way. Yes, Mr. Powell, this is what you can do. We sat down with Andrew, we went through everything.
Well, I would disagree with that, because the GIS maps and the mapping is not, they're not 100% certainty.
Well, that's what the state gives us to work with.
That's what they give you for guidance. I think what they
For
give
guidance?
you, if I'm not mistaken, it's a
Yeah, they're-
guidance tool, and it's a,
Not to be used for site-specific.
yeah, it's a site evaluation.
I come in here designing foundations on houses, do my structural engineering based on the guidance we have, and this is the first time ever that an issue has ever come up like that. I've been doing this for 25 years.
I'd specifically like to comment on this.
Mike, if you want.
Yeah, thank you. So in the past, there was another home on Roosevelt Road owned by a Mr. Donato. The commission did enter a discussion about doing some borings. It was questionable since the soils map split his property essentially in half, that there was some peat found and also soil borings indicative of a barrier beach coastal dune on the property. The commission did have that discussion with him, I believe, about doing some borings and seeing what was actually in the subsurface. At the end of the day, he chose a different route and decided to essentially elevate his current, his existing foundation to meet the floodplain requirements. So he avoided that, but that was a discussion that the commission did entertain previously.
And recently, I know there was a house in Brant Rock, and it was a discussion, and we discussed basically that whole area of Brant Rock, kind of by the restaurant up there, is mostly ledge.
The
But
Fairview, yeah.
It was a topic of discussion most recently at that project that comes to mind. But Andrew, if you'd like to weigh in as well. Andrew, you're muted if you're speaking.
Thank you. So I'd like to kind of comment on the aspect of the barrier beach aspect of this. When the comment was made that whether or not this is located in a barrier beach, and Dick is up there saying, hey, I've designed this to a certain accepted standard. What the Conservation Commission has to understand is that under the 8th edition of the building code, which was issued in 2009, okay, since then, all building departments have been working with the conservation departments and the Wetlands Protection Agency to say that anything within a specifically designated area that the DEP has stated is a barrier beach, as defined as a coastal wetland like an ocean, and then a landform, and then a wetland behind it like a river or a marsh or something like that. That landform in between is a barrier beach. And they submitted with us, under the 8th edition of the building code, a map that was approved by both the BBRS and the DEP and the state of Massachusetts that said these lands are barrier beaches. These are coastal wetlands resource areas. These are the areas that designers and architects and engineers need to design to the coastal standards of the building code. And it was all done so that we would work in concert together. You are now asking somebody who is more than 200 feet away from that barrier of the barrier beach to design a house to the barrier beach coastal dune standards. And that is the ultimately the significant thing here. Does the local conservation commission want to extend the coastal dune barrier beach area 200 feet plus past the delineated line that the state has accepted and that has sent to all building officials and all conservation officials that this is the line that we're going to establish as the barrier beach in your municipality? That's what the Conservation Commission has to decide here. Are you going to extend that line and that requirement 200 plus feet past what it currently exists for this one property?
I guess
that's all I'm going to say about it.
Andrew, I understand what you're saying regarding the building code and such like that, but you also you understand that that's not a concrete line. Like it's used as guidance, right? I think you said that.
No, not when it comes to the barrier beach.
Okay.
With it is a map that has been issued by the state of Massachusetts that is called the Coastal Resources Map for Building Officials. It's literally the map that is given to building officials so that we understand that the areas that are significant to the DEP and conservation commissions as areas that we absolutely have to protect, that are coastal wetlands resource areas that we have to protect. And we have to put on an extra pedestal for the ones that are within this area. Everything without it is not within that area. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Okay, so this is a property that is beyond that area, and quite honestly, the property right across the street, directly across the street, was completely rebuilt on exactly, and that's a brand new house, to a house, but a brand new house that was completely built on a new concrete foundation. So those types of things, I honestly, I get the precedence thing, but you should consider the neighborhood aspect of it and the feeling of the neighborhood and the way that the landform ultimately actually functions.
Thank you. Those lines are not site-specific.
I will still disagree with you, Andrew. I mean, I have pretty good education in GIS mapping too. It's used as guidance. Whether they're part of the building code or delivered to every building commission.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not I have to correct you on this. It's not a GIS thing. It is a state-issued map. It's the law. This is a legal map that defines these areas. And the Conservation Commission has to understand that these are legally defined areas. And if you are going to extend your conditions beyond those areas, you really have to explain that in your orders of conditions, is all I'm saying.
I still want to see the soil samples from the site.
Yeah, the way the Wetlands Protection Act is written in the definition of coastal dune, and it doesn't reference any map that's issued by the building commissioner or the state of Massachusetts. It's a site-by-site basis based on soil conditions. And those, whether they're issued by the state or not, it's not a surveyed map. It's a general vicinity map that it provides guidance. That's what it's for. Whether commissioners across the state use that as gospel, I guess that's up for question and interpretation, maybe it shouldn't be. Corey, do you have anything to add to this?
I think we're just getting away from what we're trying to accomplish
Right.
here, which is approve a permit for this person to build an addition, and whether or not he needs to do it one way or a different way. And we're just trying to figure out which way he should build it
Well, we need to.
based on our observations of the condition.
Okay, so I guess, Mike, based on the picture you sent, or you pulled up, your kind of observations on site, the previous meetings and filings for this property, the previous discussions and meeting minutes for that, I think I have a take of just getting the soil analysis performed on site and kind of reconvening, but I don't know if other commissioners have a different view.
I think Mr. Zimmer could take an auger out there and see what's there. This is not a giant ask.
I think you would actually need a backhoe or something like that to get down and to the depth.
No. No, I don't think so, John. I think all we're looking for are some augured soil samples. We're not asking.
How many and where?
How deep and who's authorized to make the decision? A geologist? I mean,
Well, a soil scientist.
So if,
so,
go ahead,
Frank, I'm
if,
sorry.
I asked earlier, if we do that and it comes back that it's sand, no one's answered the question, what's the next step?
That may require some design changes.
But, so if it is sand, then when you say design changes, it's not gonna be a foundation, is that what you're saying?
Possibly, yeah.
So I don't wanna bleed, I don't wanna waste
Yeah.
any more money.
Yep, I understand.
I consulted with Andrew and Dick, who've been doing this for many years in Marshfield. Andrew is talked to me, and he's the flood plan administrator of the town. He says it one way. One way is that you should go by the maps, that I'm not in a Barrier Beach area. And also, same as my neighbors, they weren't in a Barrier Beach area. I spent close to $40,000 now, and now that when I come in here, it's easy for the commission to say, well, we're gonna change things now. And I just don't think that's fair. And it's not acting as a dune. And I really feel insulted, Sam, that you don't go visit the site. Come down there with John, come down there with Dick and Andrew, and take a look at it.
I've been to the site. I'm sure
I've been to
you've
the
been to the
site.
site.
Multiple
Bert is
times.
not here this evening, but I know Bert has been to the site.
But it's not acting as a coastal dune. So is there a way to determine if it's acting as a coastal dune?
Well, there may be, but I don't even think you want to consider what that might cost. I don't know, but I am imagining that's a pretty complicated procedure.
Yeah, I don't want to get into
we-
whether or not it's functioning as a coastal dune. We could determine it just by looking at soils rather than having
And
someone
I don't want to
do a
spend money
whole
on
study.
soil samples either, if the conclusion is that I'm going to have to do a design change. From day one, I consulted with the building inspector, the floodplain manager. I asked exactly what I could do and not do. He went by what the regulations in the state of Massachusetts are. And it's really frustrating that my neighbors don't have to do what I have to do. When I can tell you, when I saw some of those projects, one is at 32 Surf Ave on the corner, I saw them dig both of those things, and a lot of it was sand. Why do I have to conform differently than them?
and how do I move forward with the next person that I go to
Yeah.
design an addition for? So now I gotta tell them that we can't do anything until you do soil samples.
So let me
They're all in the
just,
same area.
let me just read comments I made to your attorney after our final hearing on January 18th of 2023. said, "I want to clarify what the commission is seeking with respect to delineating the resource area on this property. We are not merely asking for soil samples. We want to see an analysis of subsurface sediments done by a qualified wetland scientist or coastal geologist, which we believe will determine if this is an altered coastal dune." And that's still my position.
I mean, these beach walls have been here since 1930, some of them in Marshfield. There's been no waves coming over that wall and washing to my lot. It hasn't changed in many, many, many years. It's not acting as a coastal dune. It's common sense.
Well,
Now we're
I think
changing.
we're going in circles.
Does Andrew have his hand up again?
Sam, you're the hearing officer. What, we're going to have to continue one way or another.
Yeah, Andrew, if you have a comment that you haven't made thus far or a response, I'd be happy to hear it, but I think we're kind of all on the same page, at least from a commission standpoint.
Yeah, that's fine, I understand that. I don't wanna, belabor the commission any more than you need to, but I really do wanna impress upon the commission that, the things that Mr. Powell is saying are legitimate. You have a seawall. You have very little transference of wave energy or soil or sand or all these other shifting of landforms and mounds and the things that are actually defined as coastal dunes, right? It is undeveloped, literally undeveloped parcels. This is a developed parcel. And you have to look at it as such. I know that it's an undeveloped area of a parcel, but you have to look at it from the legal standpoint of it is a developed parcel in a developed area that is behind a seawall. It does not function as a coastal dune. It is way outside the barrier beach delineation that is an accepted map from the DEP, from the CZM, and from the BBRS. It was agreed upon all of these state things that this is going to be the line, and it was so that people like Dick Rockwood and other architects and structural engineers could design projects and know what they were up against when they designed a project. So I understand why this was controversial to begin with, and why the soil samples, Bill Grafton brought up all these soil samples from the coastal wetlands district in the 1969 stuff, because it was a zoning thing and whatever. It is not anything that the Conservation Commission ever looked at, ever, until this one hearing. And I get that it was something that a lot of these previous members, you were not here for, but I feel like you have to look at this thing from fresh eyes, from what it is, and understand that a lot of the areas around and a lot of the properties directly surrounding this property have been allowed to do exactly the same exact thing, if not way more obtrusive.
Doesn't this area still function even as an altered coastal dune, if that's what it is, to prevent, in flood control and stormwater prevention, storm damage prevention, just by being a undisturbed lot and putting in a huge project like this and creating more impervious surfaces? That's something that we need to think about in this specific situation.
One other thing, Craig, and then I know you're waiting to have a comment, but DEP initially issued comments on this back on the original filing, if I'm not mistaken. I've read that in the minutes. Were any comments issued on the most recent filing?
I don't believe so. I'll double check the email that they send out when they confirm project numbers, but I do not believe so.
Is it worth having input on a kind of a larger scale, or
Well, everything we do goes back to DEP
Yeah,
anyway.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I would encourage the commission to take a look on Mass Mapper and turn on the barrier beach and wetland data layers that DEP developed, and you can see exactly how they mapped that barrier beach, because it's basically a line that goes down, from the coastal resource area to the point, I think it's across Plymouth Ave, where the wetland comes up to Plymouth Ave, and it connects right into it. So you can see definitively how, when they went about the GIS aerial interpretation to develop that barrier beach polygon. And it's fairly clear. You can see 17 Oregon, and you can go down, we cross, Ocean Street, then there's a developed parcel, I think there's the restaurant now, then Plymouth Ave, then Dana Junior's Boatyard, before you even get to another wetland resource area. So it's pretty clear how they did it. So you can see, pretty easily how that line of thinking went.
but that goes back to our point that it lacks, all of the GIS mapping lacks site specificity. It's done from however many thousand feet up. My comment was going to be, we're not getting any new information here. We're going in circles. So,
I just to voice my thinking. So in July, we asked for the soil survey, and then nothing happened. It was 4-2 vote to do the soil survey in July of 2022. John, why was that not done?
I think we ended up withdrawing the notice that there was some other stuff going on that was not related to the.
So there was a meeting in January of 2023, where we thought that we were going to get the soil survey data in, I don't know, a month or two. But then nothing happened in January 2023 meeting, and then I think the withdrawal in May of 23. I was just curious why that soil survey was never done.
Well, at the time.
The only reason, because the fact that it was asked for, I thought it was agreed to, but then it wasn't done, was just sort of an indication to me that.
I think we took not an actual vote, but the board said they'd like to see that.
Okay.
But we're back to the same issue here, that why do I have to do it?
Okay.
So, and then I'm being.
Can I just finish my point? Because you might like what I'm going to say next. So that's fine. I think we are endlessly going in circles about coastal dune and not coastal dune. My leaning is more towards Andrew's position. So I'm leaning more towards the fact that we could debate this coastal dune question till the cows come home, but I kind of follow and buy into Andrew's logic about where this property is. I've been to this. I sat at this property for about a half hour the other day as I read the materials, which I had done previously. I think what I'm more curious about, given all that vacant land, is the impervious coverage is doubling. So the impervious coverage is increasing by 2,000 square feet, correct?
Impervious means it's not going to be able to drain?
Impervious, yeah. So that open space, which maybe serves some positive function.
I think the open space is about 9,000 square feet.
But all I'm saying is you're doubling the impervious coverage with this addition, correct? Is that correct, John?
I think it's roughly that, but when you also look at stormwater runoff, all the stormwater that's onto that new impervious is being basically redirected into dry wells, basically directly infiltrated versus allowed to sheet flow or run off directly.
Okay, so what I was focused a little more on was the impervious existing was 1,900. The proposed impervious is 3,900. That's essentially a doubling. The proposed mitigation is 2,000 square feet. And so as I, again, follow Andrew's logic, and then I look at this doubling of impervious. You know, my question is this land going to function the way it should function, given this doubling of impervious and the mitigation?
I think I leave
So
that-
whether it's a coastal dune or not, you know?
Well, I'm not,
I know, I'm looking
I'm
at
not
you, but I'm
trained
not
on
sure
that.
you can answer
Yeah,
the
you're gonna
question.
have
I
to
don't know.
take that from-
Or maybe that's not a valid question. I don't know. I mean, that's one of the things we always look at when we look at a project, is what happens to impervious.
Well, I think you look at the performance standards for the resource areas, it's gonna function pretty much exactly the same as it does now. With respect to land subject to coastal storm flowage, it's gonna be designed in accordance with building code for projects within the coastal floodplain. You know, even if it was a coastal dune right now, the function of that dune, you know, to protect against storm damage prevention, it's flat.
Yeah,
It's not.
I know.
I mean, it's not providing a sediment source back to the coastal beach. It's not providing a vertical buffer against, you know, storm wave action. So the function really isn't there. The site is going to, you know, function to protect the interests of the act and the bylaw in a similar way that it does right now.
Okay. All right, that's,
and that's my argument. It's not acting as a coastal dune.
I think Andrew has his hand up again. I don't know if it's my place.
Yeah, I would just agree with John in that regard. Like, you know, the whole function of the building code, when you're doing an addition or creating a floodplain house, is that it inherently protects the function of the flood zone. That you are creating a structure that, you know, it meets all the requirements of protecting the interests of that resource area, which is the flood zone. And in this case, according to every map, DEP, you know, coastal wetlands resource map for building officials, all of that stuff, the only resource area that this property is in or is even in a buffer zone to is land subject to coastal storm flowage. So again, I would press upon that, but you know, I totally agree with John in this respect.
I'm going to take a poll of the commission. Who wants to see soil sampling? Jesse, yes? Me, I'm a yes.
I'm not sure
I'm going to say no.
it's gonna really change anything.
Right.
I mean,
Craig, I'm sorry, I did want to.
Andrew,
I know, I'm sorry.
I'm not going to recognize you right now.
No problem.
Liz?
I'm gonna say no.
No? You're a no. So right now we have 2 yeses,
No?
I'm on the
2 noes.
fence. I guess I'm gonna say no because it's pretty obvious it's just sand.
Yeah, that was gonna be my comment. I don't really need the soil analysis to tell you what's gonna be beneath that. I'm a certified soil evaluator. I can dig that up a couple feet.
Yeah, that's my take. It could be both. I've seen projects done in my neighborhood, one on my street and one across the street from this property. There was a mixture.
I guess the question is that it's, I guess to Andrew's point, is the character of this neighborhood. I do, putting this structure, whether this is a dune or not, if there's recently developed structures across the street next door, behind it, kind of on the streets all leading up to the coastal dune buffer or polygon, as Mr. Zimmer called it. I guess does this is this something that moving forward every new house, like doing this, every new house in this area is going to be up to that standard, or to Andrew's point, is that like us extending that I don't know, this is, I guess, kind of unique in the fact that, I don't know. I don't know, I mean, I certainly see the 2002 or 2022 minutes and everyone's kind of logic there. I still see it now. I don't know if it changes the intent of the project. I don't know. I'm not sure. I would, my thought tonight would be to continue it till at least the next meeting for me to get a better understanding of this. I don't know if the commissioners have other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If everybody needs to maybe reevaluate. Mike, do you have anything that you would add?
Not particularly anything that hasn't been covered yet. You know, it's obviously shows all the characteristics of a barrier beach coastal dune, but it's not within the map territory. There's a lot of other parts of town that occurs in. So, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to continue this to
22nd.
January 22nd, 2025. I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
You.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Next, we have one new business item that, we had to bury a whale that turned up dead on Wrexham Beach, and we had to issue an emergency certification to allow that work to take place. There is the whale, and the DPW buried it, and not deep enough, so they had to have a second go, at which point we issued the whale washed up, I think it was the day after Christmas, and they just did what they had to do, but then when it began to re-emerge, they realized they had to go much deeper. So I just need to have this on the agenda. This is a picture that I took after the reburial. You can see the beach shows virtually no disturbance. If you didn't know what had transpired there, you wouldn't really see anything. So we just need to affirm the emergency certification. So I move to just put into the record that this commission issued emergency certification to the DPW on December probably 30th, 31st, to rebury the whale on Wrexham Beach. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, COCs, SE 42-1318, Holly Road, Chestnut Hill Estates. The work was done as proposed. I move that we issue a COC. A second, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. SE 42-1362 was before us previously. The pool was removed and backfilled, and the building commissioner says that we need to have confirmation of what fill went in there. Did you speak to these people, Mike?
Yes, I have this email confirmation on the screen here. They confirmed that after discussing with the clients, it was 30 tons of dirt were used to fill the hole, and items were removed from the subsurface prior to filling. I additionally took another look at this property. I scaled out the wetland line and about the rough area where that patio was, and it does appear like it's over 100 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland off the edge of the pool area here.
So who is confirming that they just put dirt in there and took stuff out?
It was the client's ex-husband, I believe.
Okay. A family member.
Andrew's comments were, if any materials were left in the ground and what the quantity and quality of the fill was. This is a water resource protection district. I think we might need something more than
Yes.
someone saying, yes, we put dirt in and took some stuff out. That's a little,
That seems fair.
little whifty. So I'm gonna, I move that we continue 115 Partridge Bridge Circle's COC request. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. SE 422972, 113 Bayberry Road. Do we have a final as-built on this, Mike?
No, we haven't received a final
Haven't
as-built
received it
from
yet.
Stenbeck and Taylor.
So I move to continue the COC request for 113 Bayberry Road. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. SE 423012, 233 Foster Ave. I move that we issue a COC. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. SE 423036, 1067 Union Street. Work was done as proposed. I move that we issue a COC. A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And SE 423070, 117 Ridge Road. Work done as proposed. I move that we issue a COC. A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That completes our business for tonight. Oop, Mike?
There was 33 Bay Street. I'm not sure if that was continued to the next meeting. They did file a continuation request. If you announced the continuation previously,
thank you.
and I missed it.
We'll do that again. Do we have a number on that yet, Mike?
That is SE 423126.
3126, 33 Bay Street. I move that we continue to January 22nd. A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That concludes our business. I move to close the Marshfield Conservation Commission meeting of January 8th, 2025. May I have a second?
Second.
We are, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.